So in this video, I'm going to break down my group 16 Skyreach that we actually timed on stream yesterday at the time of recording this video. And at the time of completing this key, it was US 4th. I know those are just numbers. It's early in the season. Some people are pushing gear or Mythic Plus. Some people are pushing for like gear or raid or whatever it is. Some people are still gearing up. And so just kind of wanted to apply context there. But this is a really fun run. I do like Skyreach. I think there's a lot of funny things that can happen in here. I think the execution of some of the polls is like, you can really fine tune some of the things, which I really like. I'm going to leave my talents down below. I am playing Shado-pan. The build is a little unique, so if you're looking for my talent loadout for this run, I'll leave it down there along with like the Raider IO link so you can see what my group's loadout was. One other important thing to note is that one of our warriors, so Turbo, he has been playing Protection until literally today. And so he's like using an adventure weapon and a champion weapon playing Fury, and he doesn't have proper itemization on his gear. So just keep that in mind. But let's get into the run, because it's a pretty good one. So the start of this dungeon is extremely explosive, and I want to walk through how I set up this first pull. So when we're in this bubble, I'm going to be setting focus to this first Gale Caller, which is marked with triangle, and then I'm going to be targeting the Dread Raven so I can pull it. You can see it's getting ready to leave. It's going to leave right, basically, when the dungeon starts. We're going to be pulling it, getting Keg, Breath, Blackout, Roll with a Keg. We're going to Purify into Gloom Scale, into Keg, into Breath, into our damage potion with our cow, and then that's when we're going to enter our cycle of Keg, Breath, Blackout, Breath, and then we're going to go into some of our brews to fish for those procs. Now, notably, in my build, based on auto attacks, I'm actually running Anvil and Stave because I do think it has pretty consistent efficiency in here. I don't even know if that's the way to put that, but I'm going to be dodging a ton. And so I'm going to be getting a lot of cooldown on Purifying Brew and Celestial Brew, so I can use those to obviously fish for more procs and get more group healing. And so that's really important. Now, big thing here, Blade Talon and Dread Raven are always dangerous and are always going to be a priority. Now, in that poll, we had both of those mobs active, which is really dangerous, and we're going to try to avoid that at all costs. And later on in the dungeon, we're also going to be avoiding Blade Talons when possible, because they're just fucking terrible. They do a nasty tank buster, and they apply a really nasty group bleed, which is just not good. So Dread Raven does Dreadwind, knocks players back. That's why I'm taking on the edge, so players can position themselves between the mobs and that kind of like inner pillar, so they don't ever get knocked off. When the elementals get to 30% health, they start enraging and they start pulsing group damage, which can be really lethal if it overlaps with the Dread Raven's cast. So be mindful of that. When they get low, either soothe them. I could soothe if I was talented into it. I wasn't in this dungeon. And then the Dread Raven obviously does like the knock and the AoE. So that pull pretty much goes down. I'm now going to wait for this Dire Screech before I chain, because I want to make sure we don't get another Dire Screech when we have another Blade Talon in the pull, which we're pulling right now. I marked Triangle. That's going to be my kick for Repel. And we're focusing now, making sure the Dread Raven dies, obviously, and then the Blade Talon needs to die next. Blade Talons are super, super healthy. I'm also not targeting the right mob right now, which is something that I need to work on myself. Fortifying Brew gets committed here because this is a scary pull. Shear is applied. I also have a bleed, so that's when I commit that. I'm also going to commit Dread Scale. Now, Dread Scale, I think I'm calling it Dread Scale. Is it called Dread Scale? Yeah, fuck it. We're going to just commit to the bit. Dread Scale is really powerful. Sims say it's not good. It does a ton of damage. It gives you a ton of healing. I think the trinket is really, really bonkers. It doesn't give main stat, which I think is the biggest takeaway. There's okay tank trinkets, but I think this one is a nice balance between doing a shitload of damage, especially in AoE for like threat and stuff, but it also provides a fair bit of healing when you need it. So I ended up chaining into the Gale Caller once the first Gale Callers died, because you don't really want more. Obviously, we probably could pull the entire room, but because we're coordinated, right? Like we're in comms, we're in a group. But we didn't. Anyways, first boss. This boss is a shit show. I think we have 2 deaths here on this fight, which is just like super funny. Fight starts off pretty slow. Basically, until the intermission starts, that's when it starts getting really, really hectic. So Wind Chakram is the big thing here. This is like the sleep check, is what we call it. Now, as you can see, I pulled it away. So the blade will always go out towards a random player, but it always goes back to the original launch location. So if the boss gets moved towards it or away from it, never go towards it, because then it'll come through and keep going. But if you pull the boss away, it won't. One other thing to note is that these circles, the way that they move, they are consistent. So the furthest out like circle or tornado always rotates counterclockwise. The one in from that goes clockwise. The one in from that goes counterclockwise. And so, based on the intermission start, you can tell right away which lane you should stand in so it doesn't come at you immediately. And so I'll try to point that out in a little bit. Chakram needs to be dodged. And one other thing that I might end up doing later, if I don't remember if I do in this run, but I do it in most runs, is if someone ever drops one of these gales extremely close to us, I'll soak it with roll or transcendent. So right here, I move into the third lane, if that makes sense. So there's 4 lanes here with the tornadoes because I knew it wasn't going to come at me based on my positioning. I'll try to point out again later because it's a little confusing the way I just said that. So these gales are a little uncomfortable, but we're going to make it work here. Just like positioned by the door, watch the chakram, dodge right. As a full melee comp, this fight's pretty chill. Range, I feel like range have a harder time on this fight, if I'm being honest, just because as a tank, I know like I'll try to always be positioning for my melee, but as a range, you're in control of where you're standing because you don't have to follow the tank. So same thing here. We're going to be sitting. We're going to move out into lane 4, and then we're going to move around, and then we're going to dip kind of back in. So again, outside always goes counterclockwise. The lane in goes clockwise. And so you just kind of weave in between these two. This gale is really close. I should soak it. I don't believe I do, but that's okay. As long as melee are good and comfortable with their positioning and movement, like it's not a big deal, but helping soak those can go a long way. So Wind Chakram comes out again. And then this Fan of Blaze is just like a little bit of group damage. As a full melee group with a Resto Shaman, it's very easy for us just to stand in the heal. So here, I'm positioned to the right side because it's going to the left because it's going clockwise. And so if you're ever on the line, go to the third circle out and then go to the right facing the middle. I know that doesn't make sense. Carrot dies here because he got knocked back. He heroic leaped, landed in it, got knocked back again, and then he got hit by the kill barrier because of the knockup. And so he died. I'm going to get a res here. I was trying to find my soul link charges. I couldn't find them right away. I had to target him again, click, and then I think I end up dragging him to my bar. And then I believe at the very end of the fight, I think Turbo dies. To I think the same thing, but I don't remember. So if I was smart, I'd probably move him a little bit further away from the gale. Again, lane 3 because it's going left all the time. And then we're going to move into probably lane 4 here. I think these gales is what kills Turbo. He like moves out, gets knocked, gets hit by the tornado, and dead. So this fight's really weird. It does take practice. Again, like I said at the start of the video, Turbo, I don't think has ever done this key as a DPS before. Or maybe I think we did one earlier in the day, but like it was the second time. So blame him in the comment section. Say Turbo is so silly. Yep, that's it. All right, this pull is super lethal. Double Sun Priestess means we need to keep an eye on the blinding light, but there is triple adept, meaning that my bleed stacks are going to go up like crazy. I'm now at 7. And I was able to drop there with a leg sweep. So the key to this pull is to save your CC for when you need to drop stacks, or alternatively, as a Brewmaster, I just roll away. I roll away, create a little bit of distance, bleed drops, and then we go back in. Never go above like 5, 7 stacks. You can be really good about it. In lower keys, you can definitely go up to like 10, but it's a good practice to always drop around 5 to 7 so you can keep the damage taken low. Pull goes down. We are heading inside. I'm going to double this up. In the future, I've thought about tripling it. With this comp specifically, tripling it is so good because Spell Reflect, maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I was not paying attention when they were talking about it. It either doesn't do damage or it does damage and also reflects. So Turbo was targeted twice there by the same construct, but one of them is going to be a lot lower because I think Spell Reflect did a ton of damage there. And so with Double Warrior, we basically can immune like every other Solar Flame set, as long as it's targeting the right person, right? So this time it was on CL and Chicken, so they commit their defensives, Astral Shift and Cloak of Shadows. And then if it's on the Warriors again, so it's on, this one's on Chicken at least, the name of the game is basically just, we have Spell Reflex, so we could pull the full room if we probably wanted to. Once they're low, that's when I'm going to decide to end up chaining here. Now, this last pull, and the reason I pulled it last is because it does have a caster in it, this Sun Priestess, which does Blinding Light. I did mark it with Triangle. I have it set focus for kicks. So I'm going to be able to stop it if it starts casting, or when it starts casting. And then we are chilling. Now, there is a way to pull this room, and maybe I'll do a tip video about it, or I'll include it in a tip video in the near future. But basically, you can actually get trash onto boss for funnel if you kill the constructs first, and there's a way to pull them in such a way where they aren't linked for some reason. So if you pull like with Crackling Jay Lightning, for example, on a specific mob, it leaves some of the warriors up. And then during the boss fight, you can just have warriors on your tank for free, getting funnel damage or getting extra damage. We didn't do that in this run, but it is possible. Because the boss spawning is based on the constructs dying. All right, anyways, we're going to be going right in. I'm going to try to get in melee. I'm going to spin here just to get shuffle, just in case he did spawn a second earlier. I didn't know because I don't have timers memorized yet. This guy is a snooze fest. Now, originally, I did boss guide videos, and maybe you watched those boss guide videos. I pretty much say DPS and healer soak, tank just aim beam away. Now, in this case, we have realized that in hierarchies like this, some classes are pretty squishy, and these beams do a lot of damage, and people run out of defensives. So if you can get a tank soaking, it's kind of free. Now, the problem with tank soaking is, as you can see, I'm trying to like position myself just off to the side for the tank frontal so I can stay in the beam so it doesn't buff the boss. Because his frontals aren't like, it's not a direct frontal in front of him. It's based on which arm he raises. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or correct me if you know down below. I don't know if there's a way to control which arm he's going to be smashing with. I feel like sometimes it's based on the way you move him last second. So if I go to the left, he tries smashing in front of me, so his right arm tries to hit me, if that makes sense. But I just did that there, and that didn't happen. So I don't really know. So you can also pretty much, like the beam, you don't have to be directly in front of it. You can kind of be off to either side. And so trying to bait onto either side of the beam is probably your best bet. But anyways, this is just a rinse and repeat. I'm never going to need a defensive on this fight. These beams don't do a lot of damage. Obviously, the supernova will never kill me. You can see me baiting here while also maintaining that the beam is on me. And as long as my DPS are paying attention or pretty much not near this beam, they're going to be feeling pretty good. So the only thing that'll actually change is if there are two beams fairly close to each other and I'm soaking one of them. Ideally, the tank should be soaking a beam that's farther away from the other beams that are active. So like this set is going to be scary because the beams are kind of close. So whoever's soaking here, which I believe is our shaman, he has to be just a little careful. Like Chicken just has to be a little careful of these tank frontals if they're kind of just off a bit. And as you can see, the tank frontal, I am also dodging. If it is in the way of the beam, I am dodging it last possible second. Also, getting hit by the tank frontal will not kill you. It's if you get hit by two of them. It leaves like a 1 minute debuff on you. So you can make mistakes on this fight as a tank, or you can just soak it if you really want to. Or I shouldn't say soak it, but if you get hit, it's not the end of the world. And that's pretty much the fight. Like it's pretty chill. You guys might notice that we are playing with an arms warrior. Carrot is an absolute Giga Chad pumper. They don't do that great on single target though. So you're going to notice that his single target damage on some of these fights might be a little bit lower, but he ends up, I think, topping TPS in this key. So arms definitely can crank. So finally, I'm baiting the last beam. I got a little unlucky there. I'm going to try to move out of melee just for a second. I don't want him to blow up though. That would be like the worst thing ever, right? If he like melee someone or no one else is in melee range and he just like blows our group up. Also, these frontals, they don't taper like they look. There's like a really hard edge. So as you do it, try to pay attention to the frontals and like start making like a little menti B, just a little mental note where you're like, oh, okay, like I can stand here and not get hit, even though it looks like I might. It's a pretty hard drop off. Anyways, we go in with cow. So I'm gonna pop cow and then we're gonna go into our breath cycles. And we're gonna end up doing a shitload of damage on this pull. But as you can see, Carrot, our arms warrior, is doing massive damage. Like 500k DPS is what he just peaked at. He's actually kind of sustaining it here. It's going to drop a little bit. I am also doing a lot of damage, and so is CL. Fury warrior is a little down bad, but again, like I said, Turbo has like no weapons, not great itemization, and then here I drop Ring of Peace. Total side note, but arms warrior pumps is basically what I'm trying to say. Fortunately, though, he has 2 fixates on him, so he leaps over. But then we're good. So that pull specifically, you want to try to CC the Mark of Death. The Mark of Death goes on a random player. It doesn't do anything. It does like a little bit of upfront physical damage, but then it just forces all of the eagles to fixate that player. But if there's no eagles active, it doesn't matter. But early on in the pull, doing things like lay sweep into like a shockwave, into a cap totem, into like a knockback would be good. And then you can always ring to prevent those fixates. All right, so now we're on Mr. Rukhran. This fight's super chill. The strategy that we use is everyone stacks in melee, even if you're range, and when the bird is fixating you, you don't kite it. Now, we're very fortunate that we play with a insane man named CL, so he will always pretty much bank a kidney, and right when this bird spawns, it's just, we kidney it. And then it doesn't do damage for 7 seconds, it's probably dead, and even if it does get up, it always fixates, or what we've noticed, it always tends to fixate a range player. And in this composition, it's just chicken. It's just our healer. So it'll always be on a male class who has a shield, and we always have things like Ring of Peace and stuff to stop. So that bird in specifically, we cheap shot it on accident. I don't think CL really realized that it was like we were moving behind the pillar immediately. And so what I ended up doing is I provoked the bird to get to us faster, which then we CC'd it to prevent it from hitting chicken. So right there, kidney comes out almost immediately. Dude, CL is so fucking good. It's so insane. Sunwing in the kidney gets down to 20% health. It's targeting chicken. He just stands there. He heals through it, and then we swap sides, and that's it. So it's go right, left, pillar, right, left, pillar every single time. You can go left, right, either way. If you're a range class, don't be in range. Be in melee. Don't try to kite it out. You'll get so much extra damage on the boss. The Sunwings they don't melee. I guess maybe if you're like a fucking mage or something, but mages have a ton of defensives anyways, and that is the damage on the fight. The ad is active and meleeing you, pop a defensive. There's no other damage that the healer can't heal through, at least I should say. The tank buster on this fight feels really underwhelming. Like, I don't ever really notice it. I'm not using or committing defensives to it. I am just hitting defensives offensively. So Fortifying Brew gives me a reset, for example. It also gives us a little bit of group healing. My Black Ox also gives me a little bit of, damage and mitigation. Random side note about Ox. When you summon your Ox or your cow or Dave or however you want to say it, don't summon him while targeting the boss. Wait for an ad to spawn, because if you summon him targeting the boss, your Ox will spawn mid-air and plummet to its death. It won't die, but it won't be doing melee, and I believe the stomp damage misses. So you basically miss out on that damage outside of like the flurry strikes you get from Breath of Fire when playing Shado-pan. If you're playing Master of Harmony, you basically wasted the cooldown. And so I recommend waiting until there is a bird active, like a Sunwing ad, and then that's when you spawn your cow. And even when the Sunwing dies, your Ox, your cooldown, your pet, whatever, will stay on the platform. So do keep that in mind. Finally, Rukhran goes down. I believe we did 4 ad sets there. Single target damage is actually not bad. Like, what's nice though is that because it's 2 target cleave, Arms Warrior is actually really good here. Now you guys get to watch me embarrass myself. So I fell. So I'm going to roll back, dash to this platform, and I'm going to try it again. I'm going to set up a Transcendence just in case I mess it up again. And of course, by doing that, I mess it up again. So I Transcend, and then I kind of give up. And so I'm like, you know what? You guys go do it. And then I was like, you know what? No, fuck it. I'm really good at this game. I got this. I can do it. And I fall to my death. And so, moral of the story is don't be a hero. Be the sidekick. Wait for your group to be better than you, and then like, so I'm gonna I'm gonna water all around. No biggie. No biggie. So there is a way to do that. Maybe I'll show a video on screen, but maybe I won't. All right, so slight alteration to the route that I've been sharing. I don't mind Blade Talons, but my healer had mentioned to me in a previous run, I think we did like day 1, that Blade Talons fucking suck. And when my healer, who I'm very confident in his ability to keep people alive, when he tells me something sucks, I do whatever I can to pull less of those things. And so what we've done is we've started going left. The pull is a little bit smaller, which is the unfortunate part, but it means we have to pull 1 less Blade Talon, which is just good for staying alive. Like you want to stay alive. And so if we can minimize the amount of group damage the group takes, we'll obviously pull a little bit less. It's not a big deal. So this pack goes down, and then we're gonna go into the next pull. Sometimes in commentaries, I don't know what I'm saying. So Solar Elemental, I'm gonna pull up the stairs into this 5-pack here. We do have an Adept, so we have to be careful of the bleed. A lot of tank damage at the start, pretty explosive. I actually end up committing my health pot there. I got a little scared. I think my I think chicken was still running up, and he didn't have line of sight on me. Is my assumption. So I should be dragging over to that solar flare. I actually didn't see it there, but now I move it over, and then it dies anyways. We are making sure we're kicking the Blinding Sun Priestess on their Blinding Light cast, and then Solar Flare, obviously, we just get to dance. With the full melee comp, this is like the benefit of playing a melee comp like this, is that these like swirl mechanics often, as long as it doesn't totally pollute melee, and our group stays stacked, like you can see, Karen normally does, and CL does the same thing. They do such a good job of staying on top of me, which is really, really important, because it allows swirls to always be like stacked, which means that we can always stay in melee because we can rotate always to the left. So that's like a slight optimization that I think good melee players end up making is see where your tank is. It's easier if I had a marker on my head, but like always look at your tank and just be next to them, be on them, be near them. Because it allows you to actually stay in melee versus not. This whole area is we're gonna pull pretty slow. I think in the future I could have pulled the center pack as well. I do end up chaining this area. I try not to have more than one dangerous mob at a time. And in this case, we have the Dread Raven. And I don't want the Dread Raven plus the Solar Construct. So as the mobs start to perish, I'm then going to chain. But after I chain, I kind of realize like, oh, the Dread Raven and the Solar Construct aren't that scary. So maybe it's like okay if we actually just like chain it. Dire Screech is a little bit of AoE damage, but it's not a big deal. It's 3 ticks, brought everyone down to like half health. And then we just top everyone else up. So I think you could definitely get more aggressive with like this area. So that'd be like my critique. Making sure we kick repel, pull mobs onto these solar orbs to maximize cleave, and people need to pay attention. Warriors should pay attention to spell reflect, which I believe we got off there, which is fucking insane. And then finally, the Dread Raven goes down, so now I can pull the Blood Talon. So basically, Dread Raven and Blood Talon are the only mobs we don't want at the same time. As long as we don't do that, you can pull this platform as aggressively as you want. So double repel, we get the kicks. Good. I would have missed there. I don't think I would have missed. I did end up kicking. I just Carrot got it. Carrot's a fucking gamer. And so the only thing that is now dangerous here is if the solar flare channel is on a player who gets applied to with the bleed. But honestly, the construct should die before the next one, and then we're gonna be fucking vibing. So we're going into this. We're gonna be going into this boss with like 5.5 minutes. It doesn't take that long, but the more time, the better, because you can lose a fair bit of boss damage here. And so this fight is a little unique. Now, we don't have the best comp for it, but if you're a class or playing with a class that has the ability to get back onto the platform from a far distance, you can ignore the ads completely, and there's a different strat entirely, which I will point out later because we do it at the end of the fight when we don't have a lot of room to work with. But to start off the fight, we're always going to pull the boss back to the center, to the wall, basically. And this is just to maximize the amount of time we have to hit the ad, and it's going to allow us to have like good space later on in the fight. We might change this up a little bit in the future. I think we might try using the corners of the room first instead of this back wall, because it's going to cause a couple of problems later on. Now, playing with a rogue, I guess really any class, you always want to start with the longest stun. So if you're someone who has a kidney shot at 7 seconds or Hodge at 6 seconds, those are your best friends when this ad first picks up. Because what happens is if you can get a 7-second stun, it doesn't move for those 7 seconds. And then you can just like pretty much kill it before it even starts moving again. Now, with this lens flare, as you noticed, we started in the middle and then we dragged it off to the side, and we're moving as a group. So we're pretending like everyone has the the target on them, and if we move as a group, we don't lose any uptime. It's a really powerful strategy for full melee comps like this. So again, Zealot comes down, kidney shot gets deployed immediately. Sale is very good at like making sure he has combo points for that, which is awesome. And then the ad dies inside the kidney, which is kind of crazy. To be fair, I think I used Touch of Death. Same thing here. Solar Flare comes out. We're all just going to move as a group. Now, CL does some stuff here where he like runs it back a little bit and then shadow steps to us to give us a little bit more space. I don't think it was necessary per se, but it is good thinking, and it's to be actively thinking like, how can I like take up the least amount of space possible? CL did a really good job at doing that there. So now we're positioned in the other corner, and we have a another call down. So Kidney again gets deployed immediately. We could always follow this with a Stormbolt or a Leg Sweep. It will be a very short duration, but still, we got it down 60% inside of that kidney. And then I think that's pretty much, I think we're Sundiard pretty much. Ad will go down, lens flare gets committed, and then now we're just going to walk back into this corner. Again, we're moving as a group. Turbo is doing his best to stay in melee. He's doing a really good job at that, so fucking big GGs. And then we are going to continue kind of waddling. So we're filling up kind of corners and we're walking alongside old fire to kind of like, we're kind of like drawing, we're like outlining it basically. Dude, this boss is so fucking annoying to move. Like, it just always wants to stay inside of the tank. It's like those thirsty college girls, you know? um, anyways, Zealot gets, again, stunned immediately. It dies inside of the kidney, basically, and then we're gonna be doing the same thing. Lens flare comes out, and we are gonna now just, again, shape, just like outline this. So it's on Carrot. He's gonna stay right behind. The rest of the group can stay a little bit further ahead. And now we're just waddling over to the other corner of the room that we're gonna be playing in for the end of the fight. Now this is where things get really interesting. So I was mentioning at this point, and I was doing this live on stream. I was like, yo, CL, if like you get targeted, you can go to the edge and you can shadow step back. So we don't even have to kill the ad. So CL runs to the edge. I move the boss closer so he can shadow step to us. And then when he gets dropped here, he shadow steps back on, and we don't have to even touch the ad. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to CC it. We don't have to do anything. And so this is really, really, really strong. So anyways, we are now, last laser, lens flare comes out. We are walking it back towards where we're going to collect our loot. And that leaves us with about 2 minutes on the board, 4 deaths. So we could have had an extra minute in here. So 3 minutes. 2 chests is probably a little bit far out of the way, but we can definitely pull more aggressive at the start, especially once like Turbo gets more gear. Anyways, that was a Skyreach 16 completed in the first week of the season. I will leave everything down below, including my talent build and the Raider IO loadouts. And yeah, that was a massive win. So I'm very proud of we played pretty insane there, I think, outside of the wind bridge mess up. But yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Commentaries are back for the time being. I'm going to be trying to commentate any highly ranked key that my group ends up doing, or any higher keys than this in future weeks, to kind of talk about new strategies and such. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Fuck, dude, I messed up the outro. All right, peace.